Recording in progress is what the computer voice is telling me. And this also means that we should be live. I can see people coming into the webinar. I'll wait for a few more seconds for everybody to stream into the room and find their seats, so to speak. But what I've learned over the time is that I cannot start too late because we never have enough time.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Let's begin with some welcoming words. Hello and welcome to the final edition of our format GamesNet Berlin Europe Introduces, where we shine a digital spotlight on interesting games companies live from the games capital Berlin. Today, we welcome Stratosphere Games, who have slowly but surely grown into a multinational team of almost 70 people, employing veterans from studios such as Splash Damage, Wargaming, Smilegate, or Ubisoft. They specialize in AAA quality MMO games for your mobile devices and beyond. Titles reach from intergalactic space adventures to battling it out with medieval armies. As is tradition, André Bernhardt will host our guests and lead them through this conversation. He welcomes Kristian Metzger, John Förster, and Matthias Isenmann on his virtual couch. But before we start, I have a few short announcements and want to thank our partners. So GamesNet Berlin Europe is an initiative of MediaNet Berlin Brandenburg, whose network reaches beyond the games industry, connecting Berlin's and Brandenburg's media, creative, and digital industry to create meaningful connections and facilitate interdisciplinary synergies. The project is financed by the European Union through its European Regional Development Fund and the State of Berlin, namely the Senate Department of Economics, Energy, and Public Enterprises through its program for internationalization. As mentioned, this is our last online event before GamesNet Berlin Europe comes to its end. The project will close at the end of this month. That is not a reason to be sad, though. We will keep you posted about upcoming projects and we'll make sure to see you again soon and connect Berlin's game scene internationally again very soon. Yes, so please make sure still to follow our social media channels and find everything from event information, podcast episodes, and VODs, plus our newsletter on our website, gamesnetberlineurope.eu, where we will also announce what's next. And now, without further ado, please welcome our wonderful guests and our moderator, André.
Applause, applause, applause. I'm a little bit sad. Thanks a lot, Florian, for this introductory words, as it's the last time for this episode that we have the opportunity to, first of all, listen to your voice and the introduction words, and as well to speak with our guests. So who am I? I'm André Bernhardt, the one and only IndieAdvisor, which you can read somewhere over there, but you are not here to listen to my voice alone. We brought a bunch of amazing guests with us today, which are the Stratospheres, or how do you call the employees of Stratosphere? Stratosphereans, or anyway, with us is Matthias Isenmann, who is the lead game designer, also John Förster, who is senior producer, and last but not least, Kristian Metzger, CEO and founder. As we can't hear the audience applauding, it's me who's giving you a warm hand and saying hello. Please introduce yourself. I mean, what your name is and what you're doing, we know, but how do you call yourself at Stratosphere and how did you end up in the company?
Who wants to start? Come on, the youngest, John.
Okay, then I do the start. So yeah, I'm John Förster. I am senior producer at Stratosphere Games. And how did I end up there? So after doing a small student project in Kassel at Black Pants, where I met Florian for the first time 10 years ago. Crazy how time is rolling. I moved to Berlin and started an internship at Stratosphere Games in the early days, where we were really small, all fitting in one room. More info on that probably later. And I was helping out and growing into the team and working on actually all the projects that we shipped so far. And right now I am senior producer on Homeworld Mobile, which we shipped last year in October. But yeah, after releasing, the journey is not over. We still have plenty of cool things to work on and to ship. So we are really excited to the new things coming then also this year.
And somehow I have the feeling that we later on take a look at some of the trailers of the games you've just mentioned and some games that are coming. Thanks a lot, John, for introducing yourself. Matthias, maybe you want to follow up.
Sure. Hey, everyone. So I'm the game designer of the newest project of Stratosphere Games. I've been also I'm one of the newer members of this company, but I know Kristian from way back. I think 8 years ago or so, we already kind of met.
2013, so that's nearly 10 years.
Actually,
10 years.
Yeah, let's see. Woohoo! So no, but so we have a long history, and even I've worked in a few companies, but then also had a startup in Berlin as well. And Kristian even helped me back then. So we always kind of catched up. And yeah, and since over a year now, I'm working for Stratosphere and I'm happy here.
Cool.
Great to
so
hear.
Last but not least, so yeah, I'm Kristian, the CEO, founder, and also game director still. I wanted to change that for quite a while, but it's not as easy as it seems. Yeah, so I'm in the industry for now, I would say 24 years or something like that. Started in '99. First on a more journalistic side, wrote for a lot of magazines. Then I did a short stint as mobile games designer. In 2000, that was with Java phones and stuff. I hated it so much that I went back to journalism and did that for 6 years and then came back to development. 2011, I started basically my production career again, worked in many roles. I hope that prepared me for my role now. So basically from biz dev to product management, I had a lot of head on, and that hopefully helped me also quite a bit on Stratosphere Games. We were founded in 2015. I founded them with some of the guys that worked with me at Splash Damage, and then we grew and we had different phases. First, we did our own titles, then we did work for hire, and then 2019 was a little bit of breakthrough with big projects coming on. Homeworld, we got investment and so on, and then yeah, with the additional investments, then also a bit later we basically switched a little bit from a more bootstrap and basically slowly growing, and it got a little bit quicker. So I think 2019 we were 25 people, and now we're sitting in the mid to high 60s. Yeah, that's it from our end.
Yeah, that was quite a summary. I mean, putting all the information, I thought more we take it slow and introduce everyone to what's going on and where we are, where Stratosphere is right now and how you started out. But thanks a lot for the great introduction. Meanwhile, some of you also, excuse me, very warm welcome to all the audience and everyone who is watching us right now. Florian already mentioned this should be an entertaining format and also quite interactive. So you have the opportunity to write some questions into this Q&A stuff that is somewhere available down there. And if I see it's fitting, then I try to snitch in the question so we can just talk about this while discussing stuff. You mentioned quite a lot of interesting stuff, Kristian, that we need to sort out a bit more to get the bigger picture. So you have been a journalist, then you were on the production side as well. And when was the idea upcoming that it's time to found now your own company and look out for the right people to found it together with them and start Stratosphere?
Yeah, I mean, we are funnily also Matthias and also the COO of the company, Daniel. We worked all together at Infernum, which was a free-to-play publisher. It's a follow-up on Frogster, and it was free-to-play publisher for PC MMOs. Really interesting because we now go more and more in the MMO direction, so everything basically comes a little bit all back. And that company sadly had some issues, needed to get sold, so amount of people got quite reduced, and I was part of that. And then I got a job opportunity in Munich from Chimera, really great studio. I think really one of the best mobile studios here in Germany, but it was Munich. And so, but I worked also on a prototype with a friend, quite a bit on the side, and then basically probably also foreshadowing the whole how do you bootstrap is basically always have a second plan below your first plan, you always have a second plan. And then I asked one of my best friends, so like I would like, what should I do? And he said, come on, do it, try to do your own thing, I will support you. And he was like a business angel, and he helped us a little bit at the beginning, not with tons, but he over the years gave us some financial support, but also like helped us. And then I draw basically the draw from some of the connection. That is basically how then it slowly became into, from first an idea, a prototype, into like an LTD in the UK. Then we did a real opening up here in Berlin, and that was 2015.
There was how important was the Berlin part for you? I mean,
massive.
It could only be possible.
Yeah, I mean, the main point why Berlin is like, I mean, there's two elements which I think make great startup. Number one is a good personal situation for the founder. So that means we need a support net on a private level, on the like friends, people that you know, people that can support you, people that can answer you stuff. And the second level is the city itself. And the city itself, in our case, has enough talent. Back then, even the better prices. That was compared to London, by the way, because I came from London. That's where I worked for quite a while. And in London, there was even, I would say, still up to the day, there's still a little bit better talent, but the prices are much higher. Everything is much more expensive. And I think Berlin was a really good mix of being great for myself as having the support net, and that means I had a friend that for the first half a year we had a free office, and then there was the media board, and there was there was a lot of elements to it on the private level and on the city level that basically helped to build this foundation. I think this is one of the key components, especially when you really freshly start. Later on, when the company is running, then it's a little bit different, because then a lot of the things switch to more professionalized, more like specialized version, and then I think it becomes a little bit less important. Not all of the private stuff, at least, and then but the city stuff still keeps important, and that's like talent and pricing for the talent. I mean, I just talked to investors, and when you compare the pricing in Berlin, even if it went up crazy, and I pay now probably nearly double as when we started, it is still compared to something like the US, where I just heard an art director wants $150,000 to $180,000. It's just, that's a massive difference, especially like I said, when you're not massively financed by investors.
Yeah, I guess it's a pretty good pitch already for the Berlin ecosystem, and we will also come back to this later on. But just a short question in between. Like Matthias and John, you're both also located in Berlin since a longer time, and found your love for the city itself, or?
So I start out. I'm definitely still in Berlin. Yes, it was my first place from I moved from Switzerland to Berlin for the Games Academy, and I immediately fell in love. And I honestly I still really love it here, and I don't see a point to move or so. The game business is growing here, so I'm super happy in Berlin.
Yeah, so from my side as well, like when I moved to Berlin for the internship, I basically came from a small town, so it was completely a shift in reality when coming to Berlin. But the whole let's say the atmosphere and the whole culture, also the gaming industry and the community here was so great. Also was really awesome to get your foot into the door of being a professional game developer, like especially for a starter back then, 7 years ago for me when I came. But also what was really cool back then, when I think I was I just joined the company a month earlier, and then there was Games Week in Povades, and Kristian basically just threw me in. I was standing at the booth, getting to know people already, showing them our first game, Nemesis, Air Combat, a jet fighter dogfight game, which was still in development back then, but graphically super impressive. So there was like directly a crowd around our booth, and it's, I think, in Germany, if not the best, but like the best surrounding you can get for doing games, for collaborating, connecting, networking. Everything is there, super great. Even though 1 year ago I moved to Munich due to family reasons, and my partner has a job here, but I am still full force working in Berlin, and I'm there at least once a month for a week. So you cannot escape.
I mean, this changed. This changed with Corona. We accepted that kind of stuff much more, including hybrid and so on. I mean, but this, it's part of our.
I mean, that's the good thing about the industry. That's the good thing about Berlin, that change is a constant matter about everything that we're talking. And that is also what keeps the industry interesting. And I mean, Kristian, when you started out as a journalist, I guess you were more focused on PC and stuff, and everyone at this time was just like, console, and everyone was talking like, yeah, sure, you can play on a phone, but I mean, you play on a phone. What kind of game can this be? When was the point for you where you thought like, okay, when you were building this prototype in 2014 then, or something, where you thought like, no, first of all, when I found my company, I will focus on doing mobile, free to play. Was there a certain kind of eureka moment where you thought like, okay, I've seen the future, it's mobile and it's free to play?
I mean, just to be clear, so like when I started Splash Damage, which was this, Splash Damage is a massive studio. They worked on Gears of War and stuff like that. Really, really massive studio in South London, now owned by Tencent. And when I started there, I was there for the free-to-play and for the mobile department. So basically, I helped start that department at Worcester. Was the spin-off called. And so basically, our first featuring and our first game got like 2 million installs in like 1.5 months. And we directly saw there's a huge opportunity. The only problem was, and that's a problem that a lot of especially old school companies have that come not from free to play and mobile, going into that is just, that's like, how do you monetize? How do you, like, it's like, this is one of the harder things, because you have to work really hard on getting the team also involved. A lot of the team members there were not for that. But I saw directly, I mean, that was already when mobile was nearly doing as much as the PC sector back then. And I saw already that opportunity there. And one of the reasons why I wanted to do mobile games, and this is just to be clear, making a mobile game, it's not a small feat. And I would say nowadays, if you want to make a more complex game, like what we do with MMOs, I think it's probably as hard as PC and console, just different. But back then, I thought that as a small team, and it's the point, we would be able with like 10 people to make a pretty good and pretty successful mobile game. But in console and PC, 10 people, especially, this was even a little bit before indie became a big thing. Just to be clear, 10 people was unheard of most of the time in the PC and console sector. So I thought, if we start a new team, it makes sense to focus on something where we can hopefully be on the quality side much better looking. So like all our games, this included our first game, Nemesis, even to like Homeworld, they look not like mobile games in the eyes of other people. They have a much higher quality level, and this was always one of the key components. We don't make the casual 2D Clash Royale. Our game was high quality, very engaged games, and I think that was basically one of the main reasons why I decided to move to that. It was also making something where you feel comfortable to also finishing it, because this is important, finishing games.
Oh, I mean, that's a good point. That is just like, I mean, we had this shift several times in the industry, and you mentioned Frogster and Infernum before, and it was quite some years ago, or almost decades, where we're just like, we were talking about free-to-play MMOs, that it's just like, these are the remakes and reskins out of Asian titles that are brought to the European market. The real stuff is World of Warcraft or anything. So that is happening all over again. And I guess nowadays, no one would say that making a mobile game is an easy thing to do anymore. And also that the level of detail and graphical stuff that we can see over there is not on the same top-notch level. But you also mentioned like the indie the indie term, which was not that I mean, it was not that common at this time. You were building a startup, a game startup. Let's call it like that. And I mean, what we can see is that you also were quite successful in, or let's rephrase it. I mean, meanwhile, Stratosphere raised quite a lot of money.
Yeah.
And that was part of the, I mean, was the company named after the Stratosphere because that's where you wanted to go with the VC money? Or
yeah. I mean, the name came because we made the Jet Fighter game, and so Stratosphere made a lot of sense, and I think it sounded good. But yeah, the VC part, just to be clear, the first years we didn't get money. I mean, we tried. Just to be clear, I had in 2014, I had quite a few VC meetings. But the problem is, if you're even back then, it was even more crazy. Just to be clear, the investment in the game space in the last 3 to 4 years was, you can't even closely compare it, the amount of money that was floating in that it was back then. 2014, there was like small funds, someone like LVP, which was like the premium VC in the space. They had like $40-50 million funds to invest, and so getting investment money was really hard, and that's why we bootstrapped so long. And the first investment came basically after we already shown progress. That we did work for hire, we had a profitable year. There's like a lot of these things come together, and then in the consecutive round where Riot Games was involved, there was a little bit different because there we were even more established. And also, like I said, the last 3 years, I mean, last year not so much, but the 2 years before were pretty crazy. Corona hit, there was so much money coming in that means it became a little bit easier.
So sorry for interrupting you again once more then. I mean, you said like, I mean, first of all, it's still an achievement nowadays to get VC. It's not like
that's not easy.
Then you open up your studio and then the people come and put the bags full of money into the floor so you can just pick it up. You found in 2015 and then you were just like bootstrapping. And how long did it take then roughly until you got the first investment?
3 to 4 years. Depends a little bit how you count. It was March, and we got it in I think October 2019. We signed the deal, or the summer. So I would say it's 3 to 4 years it took us to be ready to get an investment.
And did this have something in common with your experience that you made in London somehow, or with companies in different countries where you thought like, okay, VC is a very important part of developing games, or for starting up, or for building up your startup and growing the company? Because usually, usually you're welcome. Usually the German developers, they tend to go to pitch to the publisher, take the publisher money, and that's why we're closing down to the question of Kai in a second. Usually it's the publisher money that you take, you build the game, then you move over. But I mean, you did something different then. You bootstrapped, you had this vision of, okay,
but we had also, I mean, we basically built our the first investment was built around getting also our first we had a publisher deal with Gearbox and with Wargaming, work for hire deal. And the problem is, I mean, and I think this is one of the key components why I always looked for investment, is that, I mean, first, it is really, in mobile even more than in normal publishing. In mobile even more, it's really hard to make money out of a publishing deal. The reasons for that are manifold, because the user acquisition costs, featuring, and a lot of the other elements around it, from the data-driven approach to it and everything, makes it a very complicated system. So it means making money, and now I talk making enough money to not just survive, but also to grow and to get more out of it is not, it's very, very hard to do. And because also not a lot of publishing partners pay you a lot of times tons of money up front. You get some money up front, but not like full development sometimes and stuff like that. So this is why getting VC money is the only chance to get out of the hamster wheel. I mean, the hamster wheel is literally, you get a project, you work on it, you save some money, and then you try to do something else. And now came two things that helped you. So we saved up some money, and then we came the German Games Fund, which was the second element, I have to be honest, is and then we found an investor that believed in our and he heard about the German Games Fund. He saw what we already achieved and stuff like that. And that was basically, and he had a great network, and he supported us really, really nicely, especially even in the next round. And that combination of the Games Fund, which basically gave us punching above our league, plus then the extra investment, this basically then let you get out of that hamster wheel of basically publishing deal. Yes, you can be lucky in one you have an excessive success, but even with a massive success, and we had quite a few big successes here in Berlin, but how much money you make like a profit in like the 6-7 figures. But the problem with that money is like, this is not an ongoing game a lot of times. But even some of the big successes that we had in the indie space here, they made a few million, but then the next title, if then the next title does make a few million, then suddenly that game is gone again. And so one of the main and best things, and that's why, by the way, mobile gets and mobile live games get so much money, is if you're lucky and you get a hit, you then have a lot of time, perpetual money for at least a certain amount of times, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. And this kind of combination, this is basically what investors looking for. That's why mobile and free to play was for a long time the go-to place.
Yeah. And now, because as the audience might not always know which titles are in production right now or which titles you have released and shifted so far, let's take a look at the trailers and what the VC money got you so far and what's coming out of that. So Florian, if you're ready, let's start with the older one, which would be the Homeworld release trailer, which came out
which in publishing deal last year.
So we got the perfect comparison then somehow.
Yeah.
So first of
the
all,
publishing deal came out last year, and Desolation comes out this year.
Okay, let's take a look. Typical mobile. No, just kidding. I mean, it's like we can see there's quite a difference graphic-wise, because with like the former Candy Crush or stuff that people combined with mobile gaming and titles like Homeworld Mobile. That was the release trailer, and it came out, so I didn't get that before.
In October.
Came out in October last year. And it's live, but we are still having. I mean, there's a lot of stuff still coming up. There's a DLC coming up, which we made also together with the German Games Fund, which comes this summer. And then also we will extend also the different. At the moment, it is available in much more territories, but we focus basically in the release on North America and Europe. But there will be more stuff coming out on different other territories as well, which will include additional translations and stuff like that. Okay, great. And what's the other one that is which is your own? Dawn of Ages. Yeah, there's a combat prototype live, but what we and that's what you see here is basically a teaser trailer for that combat prototype. But now in April, we finally go in early access with the full-blown game, and yeah, that's that other game, Dawn of Ages. It's a strategy. It's an auto battle and city builder mixed.
Let's take a look. So,
Cool.
world premiere? No, not.
That's it was even an older trailer. I should have checked before. There's an updated trailer, anyways. But it looks very similar. But it looks now even a little bit better. But this was just the fighting itself. The whole city elements which come in were basically built on in parallel while we basically had a live build, because this is what you do with live games. You always have something playable, always getting feedback, and that's why we had a combat prototype and now finally go live.
And the third title that is missing, where we don't have a trailer yet, is the one that you just recently announced.
Yeah, and this is called Desolation, and this is our biggest project yet. It is basically the combination of all the learnings and experiences, and some of the best people of our team is working on that. We have pre-alpha stuff running on our end, but this is basically the title that this should basically get us to the next level. That means having really like a AAA quality title out there. So and that's a funny one with Dawn of Ages. Dawn of Ages had when it was started, and even its whole it is much more normal mobile title compared to what Desolation wants to do. It will be cross-platform. It will include a lot of different elements that are just much bigger than what we did before, and it's a looter shooter, co-op looter shooter for all platforms that are out there.
Yeah, just the last days I took a deep dive into the Stratosphere homepage and take a look at some of the stuff that was mentioned there, and also within the news, and the things that was said about it, as there was mentioned about it, was it aims to develop an entire cross-platform IP to finalize the transformation into a major developer and publisher of live games and living worlds.
Yeah, sounds good.
No, but my question here is just like, so for you, so where's the new step where the transformation is happening then? Is it meant by you're stepping away from the publishing deal because you are doing the publishing as well now of your own titles, or does this also include like you are interested in publishing third-party titles or anything that will come with this?
No,
as well?
I mean, no. What we do at the moment is basically our team is set up into 3 main game teams, and one is the title, the Homeworld title, Homeworld Mobile, and that will be continued developed and published with Gearbox, where we take more the live ops and development side, while Gearbox is responsible for the publishing, marketing, these kind of things, and it's their IP anyways. And Dawn of Ages is basically our first foray into the whole in our self-publishing. We started it before, but now we have it's much more professionalized. We have like a publishing team ready that basically, I see that always like that. So Homeworld Mobile was basically us proving and showing that we can handle a massive high quality MMO type of experience and can develop that. Dawn of Ages will be our us showing that we can self-publish and get the game to market and be successful with it. And then basically the idea is Desolation is basically then where we basically bring these two together, having not just an amazing MMO kind of deep experience, which hopefully transcend years, but also be able to get that to market and these kind of things. So this was always how I thought the company evolving, basically working yourself up from smaller titles, getting better and better at producing, at building games, getting better at publishing them, to basically then end at something. And this is the thing that we made clear. It's like we dabbled a little bit before we did Homeworld. We dabbled in in idle games, and we tried this and that, and I think that it's also not the right thing to do. You should focus on what you want to do, and for us it is cross-platform multiplayer games.
Yeah.
I think that's with high quality and deep economy. We just see what kind of pro that brings for everything in a game, and I think that's the way of how we can make, and we as a team can make awesome experiences that are product and community driven. And I think these two elements together, these are just a culmination of what the whole company journey is basically leading up to that point.
Yeah, okay. I didn't get this before. In total, Matthias and John, is every one of you working on every title, or which are the titles that you are currently working on in the company?
No, we have basically 3 different teams working in Stratosphere Games right now. One is Homeward Mobile. This is my team, where I am senior producer for, and we are mid-20 team size there.
Yeah.
And then there is also the Desolation team working entirely on that project, and the Dawn of Ages team is also like let's call it separate team. But of course, we are sharing resources and knowledge, especially across the seniors, where it's needed. So basically, we have 3 different producers working on the project, but are collaborating quite heavily beneath each other.
And then, last but not least, for sure, the publishing team, which
Yeah.
basically is then responsible for getting these games to markets. And just to be clear, there are some matrix positions. I mean, we have, besides the publishing team itself, which is a bit more flexible from marketing art to from a marketing team itself, not just the art, but also the team. These kind of people are a little bit more flexible. I mean, some are more dedicated to one product than others. But we also have other roles that are, and this is one of the strengths that you have when you have bigger teams. We have a sound designer in-house, and the sound designer, can work. We have a sound designer in-house, and he basically can work on all 3 titles. We have an animator, 2 animators now, and they can work on different things. We have technical artists, we have a graphics programmer, and this is another really pro thing for having bigger teams, is you get more and more specialized. So, and you can then afford to, like our technical artist, he worked for a long time purely on Homeworld, but then he also helps out on the other projects. And these kind of flexibility you just have when you have bigger teams, and you can then work. And then overall, I mean, the goal is that you get the quality. It's a little bit more organizational work, but this is basically one of the big pros. It's like, even if you have one team, having a sound designer for one project alone, it has to be a massive project to be give him enough work to be there 24 hours, like 8 hours a day, to just doing like basically sound design.
Matthias, then as a lead game designer, it's just like you're working on, let's say, Homeward Mobile, then most of the stuff is done, and then you hand it over to someone else, and then you move over to the next project? Or is it just like, how aligned are you with each project, and how continuously are you working on stuff then?
So since I joined just for this new project so far, right? It's very much like I'm focused on that. But at the same time, like all teams, we have like these cross-project kind of meetings, right? Where we talk with each other, where we get feedback from other game designers and stuff like that. Obviously, like for new features and stuff, like we sit together and discuss them as well, and see, what have we learned from other projects. So it is definitely something that is a lot more collaborative, right? We're still one big company, right? But then at the same time, yes, everybody has a small team, which is also kind of cool about Stratosphere Games, where it's a kind of starting to get a big, but then the teams are still kind of small, right? So as a singular person in that team, you can do a lot. You can have a lot strong impact on the game. You can feel a lot of ownership about it. But then at the same time, you can go to another team and say, give them a bit of feedback, what you think about that game. And this is also like in general something where feedback is like, the feedback culture is very open, like we listen to everyone. And so, that's kind of the cool thing. Small teams, but a big company, but lots of people giving input.
How many people are working in the company now? I counted like something, or found a press release where it's 67 or something. Is that the
I mean, that's the only downside of being of a certain size. There is there's certain fluctuation, so it goes up and down. I think at the moment we are like in Slack it's like 60, 65 or something like that.
Okay.
But we were sometimes 67. So we gain people, we lose people. That's sadly now a little bit part of it. Just to be clear, when we had the 25 people, I think in the first 5 years, 3 people left us. And this changed now. I mean, this is the only downside of being a certain size. It's not exactly anymore like the smaller one. And it's just a little bit harder to keep everyone as engaged as it was before, because when you all work in one room on one project, it's a very different feeling. But I think we still keep it in a way that people still feel a lot of involvement and stuff like that. So I mean, I know still every name. I talk to everyone before they get hired. So these kind of things, like most my department heads do the same. So it's not already so detached that so it's still a good size. But we're aware that, I mean, this is at the moment, there's always these kind of sizes you talk about where it gets a little bit more less personal and a bit more just different in this atmosphere. And 50, 60 is one, 30 is one, 50, 60 is one, and then when it comes to 80 to 100, these are like the first steps, and then it becomes a little bit less probably, and then like the big ones are like when you really grow. So for us at the moment, we are pretty good size. We grown quite a bit, and I have to be honest, at the moment we are happy with our size, and we would even we are raising another round. You would not go like crazy high, because like I said, it's like the only problem when you grow fast, you also have then the issue that sometimes hire people that are not perfect fit, and this could be also because that is then just much harder to do so.
But when I mean, you're currently building 3 games at the same time at different stages of the development, for sure. But I mean, the special thing with mobile and MMOs, in the end, these are all forever games, or let's say games as a service. I mean, these are all planned to live for a very long time. So is it still that you can say like, in mobile there's still the opportunity that we can, even if the game is successful, it's okay to keep it small, or are you doomed to grow to it? Because if the games are all successful, you need to pump out new content all the time and give.
It's then a different problem. It's like this is a clear thing. The problem in mobile can be also that I mean, this is the point. If you're really successful, or if you're really unsuccessful, decisions are much easier. The killing or growing. But I think one of the bigger issues, like as a lot of times, is this middle part, where they're kind of successful, or they are successful in some ways, but not everywhere. And I think that's the only thing where mobile games, where you have to find the right culture in your team, where you basically, when do you grow, how do you grow, I mean, in the case of Homeworld as an example, we are still, there's still quite a bit to do, because it's a massive project. Just to be clear, in the max, the amount of people that worked on it was never like crazy amounts. And because of that kind of stuff, because it was never too big, we were to the point that there's always a lot to do, and so that's the point. You either throw hundreds of people on a project, but it still takes 3 years, or you have smaller teams, but then it takes a little bit longer. So that's the point. So where we are at the moment, we're basically growing up still growing the team and the quality of the game. And I think that's the point. Finding the right spot is like, and this is the sad thing about mobile games. There's the spot where it becomes suddenly successful, and then it's much easier. But it's like there's like this middle part where you have to basically get over the hump, basically.
And when is the moment visible on the horizon already, where we would say like, okay, you're going the full circle by bringing everything back to PC and console again? Or
I mean, that's the main thing. We said we want to do cross-platform, and the main reason is, I think in the world today, with all its challenges, I mean, but this would be probably another discussion. It's like the challenges that we have in mobile besides that, which is IDFA, ATT, app transparency, basically privacy stuff around Apple, which had massive impact on advertisement and stuff like that. And some of the other situations around investment and stuff like that. These kind of things got us to the point where we say, and because our games always look really great, it doesn't matter which platform. That brought us to the point that we believe that cross-platform has a strong opportunity to be successful in all the different departments and all the different platforms, and gives a much bigger amount of potential audience. Yeah, and if you make games like we do, these games work on both.
How important is it, would you say? I mean, you didn't start with this mission when you found the company, or I mean, there was like the
high quality was high quality 3D. That was always the most important thing for us, and also the themes being a little bit less casual, more hardcore. This was always the same. I think the aspiration for like this massive multiplayerness, the cross-platform things, these come with you growing and being able to do it. Because before, just to be clear, it's nice to have this wish, but when you're like 10 people making a cross-platform massive multiplayer looter shooter is pretty crazy. And in our case, it's very different when we have when you then suddenly can then grow a team of 20, 30 people on a project like that. You can grow them even bigger. These kind of situation, you need to have not just the financial, but also the talents and the flexibility in a team to allow that.
You mentioned like that you mentioned like this. Okay, it's the big challenge for startups nowadays is to get over this hump, especially in the mobile business than, for example, or the free-to-play business. How happy have you been when you heard about the opportunity that was suddenly existing with the Bundesförderung, by saying, okay, now we got this easy. I mean, Medienboard is doing a great job without a question, but now with having the opportunity to get easy access to an even bigger pot of money to double the investments that you get into the company somehow.
I mean, this is really, really great. And I want to make that clear. I think for us, it was a fantastic opportunity, but it doesn't help you over the hump because you still have to make the game. While the Bundesförderung was fantastic, I think there was other challenges, like as an example, Corona. I mean, I want to make that clear. Corona, while remote work, we do hybrid work, is an option. And don't get me wrong, it can be very good. There's some pros, but there's also massive cons. I mean, most titles I know, most studios that I know, had massive delays in development time and stuff like that. So it was great to have the Bundesförderung, but and let's say if everything would have gone normal and smoothly, that would probably be better. But having then also the Bundesförderung and then at the same time something like Corona came along, I think it helped us quite a bit to don't get into some of the issues. And us as a genre platform entertainment form, it helped quite a bit because it allowed us. But like from a pure production point, it had also its challenges. So let's say I think the Bundesförderung was for us a rocket booster that helped us, especially getting the first investment. And then even the second investment came honestly a little bit more from the situation around Corona and the push that we got from that the whole investment space got from the fantastic numbers that the industry had. Because that was I think the bigger push here, the much bigger push.
To not dive too deeply into this to the hard times of Corona, as we are all trying to get over COVID and forget the dark times, or we could spend another hour on that. I'm just more curious on like, okay, you had this sudden shift of decentralization of, you mean this hybrid format of how people can work. And by taking a look at the three of you, you're not sitting in the same room right now. How was it? I mean, was that plan of the company before, like to be okay? Or
I
you
was
see that
completely 100% against
Yeah.
remote work. I was against hybrid work. I thought it was bad thing to do. I always didn't like it because me personally, but this is a very personal thing, I live from interaction with humans, and I think the filter. But thanks to our, I mean, we had already the investment in. My COO was clever enough to talk to me long enough that we get Teams, Microsoft Teams.
Yeah.
And so by mere chance and good luck, we basically had it ready when Corona hit us. So I think the hit that we got was not as dramatic as it could have been. But just to be clear, for the Homeworld team, that worked pretty fine. There was some hiccups, but it was pretty fine because that team knew each other for a long time. They worked together for a long time. So they just basically went into home office, and there was already connections. They were already like everything. For the Dawn of Ages team, it was much harder because we started to build up the team while we were in Corona. And so suddenly you start a completely new team, then they will work together and stuff like that. And then there's Corona, and that becomes then complicated. So I think, and this is the main thing, is like Corona for some teams, it was not as big of an issue. I just think that the bigger the team is and the newer the team is, the more it became a problem. That is my 5 cents. And now I embrace hybrid work. We do hybrid. Matthias is in the other side of the office, so he is here. Yeah, so we embrace it now. Yeah.
Now my master plan comes together because Alina here within the chat was asking with like, okay, could you share? First of all, she was thinking about your transparent introduction to the company itself and to the company's life. But by talking about the Bundesförderung, which brought more money into the ecosystem, also with the good numbers that the industry was showing. There is this competition for talents, even in Berlin, because there's a certain amount of people, even if more people want to join, they still need a flat or something. So there's a limit. You have some of them within your company. What are the tools of you making sure to retain them within the company? One thing we already heard, it's like, okay, you got the opportunity to have this hybrid working format, which is, I guess, like which we also need to ask John and Matthias then in a second whether that was one of the reasons to join and stay. But what are other things on tools or techniques that you're using to keep the workforce happy and on board and aligned?
I mean, 2 elements are the main drivers. I think when you get into more high quality space, when you have certain IPs, certain type of games, more games and less like money making machines, or more like less data driven, a little bit more gamey games, you get a certain different kind of talent that applies for it. So just to be clear, most AAA studios that I know, they pay much less than, I mean, like most studios here, even some in Berlin. When I started Splash Damage, their payments were really low because everyone, it's the same phenomenon when you go into like high quality dining. So if you go to Noma, a really bad example, but the best restaurant in the world, I heard that people paid money to work there, no joke, because they wanted to learn there and stuff like that. So what happens is, the more high quality games you have, it's much higher to get people to that project. The problem is if you then do a new IP or something like that, getting people on there and trying to also hire a little bit up. So not getting more juniors, which juniors are always a little bit more flexible. They want to learn and stuff. When you go and hire up, it becomes more and more expensive. Like I said, our salaries are not quadrupled, but at least doubled to tripled since we started, and then that's the point. So to retain them, you can either provide a nice environment, a good feedback environment, enough freedom in their decisions, not too much. That's again another conversation of itself. How democratic game development can be, but I don't go down that road. But also then, so it's like freedom, learning, quality of productions, and then comes the other stuff. And it's the other stuff that you have to do, but I doubt that most people are really like, like joining because of that. The supported BVG ticket, the urban sports, the extra health insurance.
Now we need to ask Matthias and John, did you join for the other stuff or
only for the BFG ticket? That's it. I think definitely one important aspect is the games. Like for me, like the Desolation project, it was like, it's like a super interesting project for a game designer for sure, right?
Yeah.
So that's definitely a big part. But in general, I think Stratosphere Games is a company that, I don't know, values your personality quite much and just looks, okay, what is your talent, what is the right fit, and finds that, the right position for you in the company and adjusts to it. So which means like, yeah, I'm one of the person that goes into the office quite often, right? Just because I'm a game designer, I need to talk to people. I want to be here to talk. But then again, like we have enough freedom where I can say, you know what, 2 days or so, I would love to work, I don't know, in Switzerland, if that's okay. And then that works also as well. So there's like definitely like this playroom in there as well, right? So I don't know, I really.
I can definitely confirm that. So when I joined, it was still like the early days. So there was not much of BVG ticket. It was basically us in one small room. We were 6 people. I was sharing a desk with Kristian, like sitting face to face. So everyone was going to the office. But as Matthias said, like this philosophy of finding the right spot for everyone, making everyone be heard, everyone is able to give feedback and to have an impact on the project, was something that was as important back then as it is right now while we are bigger. Like me, for example, I didn't start as a producer. I went through the whole circle with like QA, game designer. I did sound effects until I then reached the producer role years ago, which was something that is really nice. And I think this is something that is still quite impressive nowadays. With the democratic approach on game development, I think talking about things, discussing feedback, features, playtests, stuff like that, there's a quite low, like flat hierarchy where everyone can participate, even if you're not in the team that you are basically giving feedback to. So somebody at Desolation is always welcome to join discussions in Homeworld, for example.
What was the biggest challenge then overall? May it be on the employee side, may it be on the technical side or whatever, to grow Stratosphere from the humble beginnings until now? Where was the thing where you said like, okay, and maybe also which would be then the #1 tip that you would give to a new team? Make sure to always focus on this, because in hindsight, it's very difficult to get this right.
I think that's one of that thing is that democratization. It's like, it is hard. So giving freedom. So now comes giving freedom to decide on a small level, on your own work and stuff like that. I think it's crucial. But giving freedom on the direction of a product is a big responsibility, which needs a lot of experience and a lot of right decisions. And I think in the Dawn of Ages team, which had quite its, like I mentioned it before, Corona was not always easy to handle it there, because like building it up while there was a lot of challenges, let's say like that. I think one of the biggest issues there is like sometimes the team thinks, or sometimes the team can take on responsibilities, and I think some of the decisions that we made were pretty brilliant. I think the game is in a great place, it looks great, it's also a great game, but sometimes you can also lose yourself in these kind of things, and that's the problem when you get too democratic about decision making and not about feedback and getting all the different ideas in or stuff like that, but then also who in the end decides. And I mean, one of the things that we do at the moment quite a lot, and we still have to do, is basically that we try that the team basically tries to talk it through and tries to find a conclusion. But if they can't, you need someone that is the tiebreaker. And that is someone like me. It is sometimes other department heads in the art department or something like that. So even we tried things like having a distributed art direction for a product, and it was not good. I say the results were good, but the discussions and the friction coming out of it, of having this like the end result was great, but like the friction coming out of it was quite can be very frustrating. So I think that's the point. What I can tell you is like at the end, all these measurements on all these measures of providing extra stuff and freedom and stuff like that, this is all very weak compared to having a tight team fit, and that means finding the right balance for the team to work. So that means, as an example, having someone that is having basically someone that leads certain departments, someone that leads the full project, because freedom is great, but a lot of times when you then come to the point where it's hard for you to make the decisions because you don't have the overview, then it can be also a problem, because then friction discussions come along, and that made it also that in like as in Desolation, it's much more coherent at the moment, because I also did something, and I think that was one of the crucial elements. Now comes the tip part. Key people on Desolation are people that work with me and work with the company for many years. So while in Dawn of Ages, we had 1 or 2 people that knew the company, knew me, but most of the other people were new. I think, and forming a new team without these tentpole characters, I think that's the biggest challenge. And I think that's what I can give it a tip. If you ever come to the point that you have more than one team, because with one team it's pretty simple, because they know each other a lot of times, you then grow them. But if you want to open up a new team, try to seed them with the key people need to know you, know the founders need to know each other well enough, and then you can throw fresh people on them. Just basically they stick then on it like glue perfectly. I think that was the main thing why Desolation had an easier start as Dawn of Ages had, because we just changed our approach how we built these teams.
And this is sadly where we need to do the cut right now. Thanks a lot for sharing these insights. Usually when I prepare all the interviews and the discussions that we're going to have here, there's like a million of interesting stuff that I would love to talk with you. And I think and then I usually think like an hour is such a long time. So make sure that you get everything covered. And then suddenly it's just like, but I didn't get to that. So I'm sorry, therefore, that we couldn't cover all the questions that I had in mind already, but hopefully for everyone within the audience, you got a nice insight into the life of the Stratospheres. How do you call yourself internally now, the employees? There is no term like.
No.
Okay. Next time.
But everyone that is with the company for 5 years gets a pilot helmet.
Oh, okay. See.
So we are the pilots. I don't know. Yeah, that is.
So there it is. That's the pilot helmet you get for 5 years.
Ah, okay.
Nice insight into the company.
Okay, so thanks a lot, the 3 of you, for being with us today. Thanks a lot, everyone within the background of the MediaNet in preparing this episode. Thanks everyone within the audience to being with us and listening to all my questions and all the answers. And yeah, everyone who made this happening. It was great. Hopefully see, last thing, if the people want to learn more about Stratosphere itself, there's a Discord. They need to look for Stratosphere Discord or something to get more involved into it, or social media.
Now it's a little bit different in our case. We have Discords per product. There's a Dawn of Ages. There's a Dawn of Ages Discord. There's a Homeworld Discord, which is but also led by Gearbox, but we are there as well. And then we will do the same approach to Desolation. There's no, because I mean, honestly, most people are not that. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's cool when you have a cool studio, but most players, they want to play great games, and the studio is nice. It's nice people that do some nice stuff, but I think it's not their main drivers. And we are very player focused and not so much the B2B focus. That's okay.
So once again, thanks again, everyone. Now it's time for the crazy waving aspect, and then it's time to say goodbye. So goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Thanks for having us.